There we go. Don't tell me live streaming's not available. Hello, hello, hello. Let me just copy this and put it onto the Teams page. So if you say hello and I'm just on Teams, I will be right with you. Savage love, did somebody break your heart? Good morning. Hey, Lachlan. Hola. Break your heart. But your savage love. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Just getting my questions up to make sure I'm answering the right things for you, so this lesson's actually useful. I do have an audience. Hello, Shan. Look, I do have an audience. You can just see my messy state in my room, but see both doggos. I don't know if you can. They're both there, both doggos, but clearly bored of me, so they've gone to sleep. Hi, Sam. Oh, thanks. Wow. You should see over there. There's stuff ready for Qatar, which makes it not a nice room. Very messy. Very, very messy. That's the one I need. This is the one you need. Doofenshmirtz. Here we go. Right, I've got both of my books open. I've got my questions ready. Oh, come on. Here we go. So, let's get going. Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. That's the one. There's 104 days of summer vacation. Oh, there for Phineas and Ferb. Anyway, there we go. So on Wednesday, we started to look at the Berlin Wall going up, the reasons for it going up. And we kind of learned that there was a brain drain, which I have been reliably informed by Lachlan that I am too old for. So we had the brain drain of all the people. There's 104 days of self-isolation. I like that one. And school comes around just to end it. Okay, I will start the lesson now. Love it. So we looked basically at the brain drain last lesson, where all the skilled workers from the east were moving to the west. Khrushchev was super embarrassed about it and delivers in 1958 his Berlin Ultimatum, where he says that the West have either get out of West Berlin or else, and gives him that really annoying choice. Eisenhower does not accept that particular ultimatum and says, that's not going to happen, but I will talk to you about it. They have a summit in 1959, but nothing's really agreed. Nothing's really set in stone. So they agree that they are going to meet in Paris in 1960. And that's where we left our our work on Wednesday. And we're going to pick it up there at the Paris summit in 1960. And I must say, it's one of my favourite summits of the Cold War because it is packed full of drama. Packed full of drama. I love it. Flesh has got his head now laying off the bed because it's got that much. So these are they've agreed to meet in Paris and discuss over the stuff that they had been at the previous summit that's got no name. Excuse me. I didn't yawn in the last one. Why am I doing it now? And things seem to be going fine leading up to the summit. Everything seems to be in place, except for it's due to happen on the 14th of May. Let's go there. So it's due to happen on the 14th of May, 1960. And everything gearing up to that is absolutely great. Things are going well. Until the 5th of May. That is 9 days. Am I correct? Yeah. That should be my maths. Fine. On the 5th of May. So let's do this here. Now, we talked a little bit about this in our arms race lesson, but now this is where I'm going to give you the proper detail about it. So, on the 5th of May, 9 days before the summit, everything was going well until the USSR announced that they have shot down an American U-2 spy plane. Now, these U-2 spy planes used to fly at a really high altitude, but weren't quite in the atmosphere, not quite a space aircraft. And they used to fly along and take pictures of what was going on below them as a way to have, oh my God, excuse me, an indicator of what was going on in the USSR. And their satellite states. So they used to take pictures of Romania, Hungary, all those kind of countries, as well as the Soviet Union itself, to keep track of how many arms that they had, so how many weapons they had, what sort of space stuff they were doing, and basically keep an eye on them. The only issue was with this U-2 spy plane is they would take pictures and it would be this bird's eye view of an area, and then humans would have to interpret the data, interpret the pictures, which then meant what the Soviet Union used to do is they found out about these U-2 spy planes, and they used to make cardboard cutouts. It's just embarrassing when I say that, but they used to make like cardboard cutouts of missiles for the U-2 spy planes to take pictures of, to make them look worse than they were. Excuse me. Sorry, to make them look more equipped than they actually were, which I can see why the Russians did that, to try and not lose face, but it did mean it would arm the Americans a bit more. So I don't quite get that, but there we go. Now, this U-2 spy plane was shot down near the Soviet city of Sverdlovsk. I think that's how you pronounce it. There you go. Now, the pilot survived the crash, and he was taken into custody and put on trial. Now, this wasn't... No, you're not boring me. Promise. This wasn't any ordinary trial. It was very much a TV trial. He was paraded in front of the cameras, and he was really made an example of, and his name was actually a guy called Gary Powers. It's a really interesting story if you want to look at it. Now, you don't have to know the ins and outs massively, but if you fancy looking at an interesting, cool story of the Cold War, this one is it. Now, Khrushchev uses Gary Powers' capture as a way to try and demand that all flights and U-2 spying stop, and that the Americans should apologize, which, when Eisenhower was a military guy, a military commander in World War II, you can imagine it ain't going to happen. Okay, it ain't going to happen. So Eisenhower was prepared to stop the flights, says, yeah, okay, fair play, I will stop the flights, but I'm not giving you an apology for spying because you do it too. And Khrushchev is not a fan of that. There's very bitter exchanges. They have a preliminary. They have a meeting, which actually ended with Khrushchev storming out of the Paris summit. All right, so this guy, he just storms out. English. I had a stroke, literally. So that then meant that Eisenhower had all this visit planned. There we go. Had a visit planned to the Soviet Union and was going to be the first president to go to the Soviet Union. He's already been to the Soviet Union, you idiot. Yeah. He cancels his plans to go to the Soviet Union, and the summit breaks down and doesn't take place in the way that they had wanted it to initially. So it's a bit of a fail. There are now tensions between Eisenhower and Khrushchev, but Eisenhower has got a lot more going on that he's more bothered about. He's got issues with Cuba bubbling up at this point because Castro is beginning to take power. Things are going on there that he is not overly happy with. And remember, Cuba is very close to America. We will go over this in detail. So he's got Cuba. He's also got an issue in Vietnam. So he's got Vietnam going on. And then also Eisenhower has to factor in that the civil rights movement is now picking up pace, and he's got domestic issues like that to deal with as well. So to be fair, when Khrushchev storms out of this summit, Eisenhower's not bothered. He served his 2 terms. He's coming to the end of his presidency. He's not bothered. So what happens then? What goes next? Well, Eisenhower finishes his term as president, comes to an end, and a young whippersnapper comes along into the White House, known by the name of JFK. So JFK has won the 1960 election and is now appointed as president. He wins it. And he then, I'm just double checking I'm going along. Yeah, making sure I'm answering this here. And he is relatively young, okay, for a president. He's in his 40s, which I'm going to say for all of us, 40s, sorry, Mrs. Goy, if you watch, would seem older to us. However, the current Cheeto in the White House is in his 70s. Obviously, Obama was quite young. Bush was in his 50s and his 60s. So notoriously and historically, America elects quite old presidents, older men. I can actually say that because they haven't elected a woman yet. The current Cheeto, yeah, duh. So they are usually older white men. JFK being the exception because he was a younger white man. Obama, obviously, recently, complete exception, younger black man. So JFK seems to not have political experience. Now, again, I am fascinated by the Kennedys. The Kennedys are one of my favorite families to study in history. I believe it is on HBO. It might even be on Netflix now. There's a mini series called The Kennedys, and you learn a bit more about JFK. And he came from a very political family. So even though he was young, he had a lot of political clout behind him. All right. And the reason I'm telling you that, you're probably thinking, well, Miss, why have you told us that? It's because Khrushchev arranges a summit in Vienna, Vienna, in Austria, to try and restart these talks. Because Khrushchev has now got rid of Eisenhower. He hasn't got rid of him. Eisenhower's gone, has got rid of him to deal with. So he's got a new president who is young. And Khrushchev thinks he can be manipulated. He can be easily persuaded. Don't know what this is all about. He doesn't have much political ideas. He is going to be an easy target to basically get what he wants. He was a pushover, is what Khrushchev felt. Now, that's the reason I've told you that JFK's got political prowess and a bit of clout behind him, is because this is a really fatal error that that Khrushchev makes about KFC. Braden, I blame you for that. JFK, not KFC. The colonel is not the president. Now, what Khrushchev fails to realise very quickly is that JFK actually makes a very bold statement and reasserts the Truman Doctrine. Get comfortable, Bomb. Meaning that JFK has now decided that he is going to get tough on communism again, that yes, there's been this kind of thawing period, but actually there is a real need now to get tough on communism again, because they seem to be getting away with what they want and trying to shove the USA around, and and he just can't have that. So he reasserts the Truman Doctrine, basically revives it and says, yeah, this is the policy of the 1940s. It worked for us then. I know we're 20 years down the line, but I feel it's going to work for us now. So I am going to be tough on communism. Now, yeah, I'm just making sure I'm answering all your questions for you. Because of that, when he arrives at the Vienna summit, Khrushchev starts throwing his weight around, starts demanding the West leave Berlin, that he wants to make a new treaty with East Germany, and he would end all occupation rights, including the Western access to Berlin. He just goes and says, remove your troops, get out, so on and so forth, and just basically demands absolutely everything that he physically can. And Kennedy just sits there and says, no, I'm not removing my troops. I'm actually going to increase my spending in my defense budget. Yeah, Khrushchev, you can jog on. It's not happening. We're not doing that. I'm staying in the West. Yeah. And you can imagine Khrushchev is floored by that. He's gone in with the attitude that he can push JFK around. He's demanded loads of things, and he ain't got it. Oh dear. So Truman announces that the Soviet budget is going to be increased more than 30%, which is ridiculous because they didn't have that kind of money. And he then makes a very, very big decision for Berlin. And that is, he decides that he's going to, are we ready? Say it together. Build a wall. That was my Cheeto impression. I hope you enjoyed it. Pause your game, mum treatment. Oh. Make the communists great again. Yeah. So nothing is agreed at the Vienna summit other than tensions going up and up and up and up. And this then results in the fact that on the 13th of August 1961, a 27-mile barrier is built up around the city of Berlin and right down through the middle, across the city, not around the city, across the city of Berlin, that big divider, and means that there is now a permanent division in separating the East from the West. I'll write that up. Where's my little... thingy. Floobs, what did I do with that? Do you know, Bubba? No, Bon, do you know? Did I drop it? I did. I sat on it and I dropped it. There we go. Come on, out you can. I just scraped my knee. Please bear with me while I rub this off my board. Do you like Floobs? You good boy? He's just sat looking at me like, what? As I said in the previous lesson, this board, I had good intentions with it. I don't think I bought the best quality. Unfortunately, which means it's very difficult to rub it off. There we go. Workout. Okay. So, Berlin Wall, gone up, 13th of August, 1961. So in the Berlin Wall's infancy, it was literally like barbed wire. It was quite simple because it was done literally overnight. It was barbed wire, and then let's see if I can. It's a very tiny picture in the early. Okay. So it's a lot of barbed wire, lights, posts, that kind of thing. So it's then that's the initial structure, and it is what we call fortified, so made stronger with machine guns, and it was then later strengthened to being a more permanent barrier. So that whole an actual wall. Oh my goodness, Uncle Joe's here. Hi, Uncle Joe. It becomes a much more permanent structure, and that's that wall that we know now. You say Uncle Joe, it seems a bit much with the machine guns. I'm going to tell you all about it. It's quite something. Okay, so it does become a more permanent structure now. Yeah, so that will take you to that. The wall, so initially is this sort of quite temporary structure, wooden posts, barbed wire. They do have machine guns on there to guard it. They quickly realise that people can get across because where they put the wall, it literally separated families. So if your friend lived on one side, like on the western side, and you lived on the eastern side, you were no longer able to go to and from the east and west anymore. It literally was that done. And quite often people would be in the tower blocks next to the wall and jump across. Not a lot survived, but this is how desperate people got, because they weren't allowed to go there. They would try and escape over the barbed wire under, they dig holes, that kind of thing. And once they realized, the Soviets, that this temporary structure was not good enough. They then created something more permanent, which was the wall that we knew. We know kind of from different images, and I'll see if I can find one, that is then kind of graffitied on the western side. So no, back when I was actually a ginger. So that is a piece of the Berlin Wall there, and my bobblehead. So on the Soviet Union side, then they build this wall, and again there is barbed wire on it. There's guards now. There are different checkpoints along it. You've got patrols going up and down, and again, people are still trying to escape by climbing up it. And the Soviets then say, right, okay, that enough is enough. And they then kind of go for the Berlin Wall 3.0. And when they build or renovate the Berlin Wall, they put anti-climb paint on there, and they paint it bright white. Now, the reason is, when you are stood next to a wall, even when you're in a white t-shirt, there is, I don't know, I have a cream wall, but you can see me. There is no way I can make myself any whiter than I am. If they painted it another color, people could have got clothing, and paint to get themselves across. So they have this anti-climbing paint. They've got the bright white. They've got searchlights. They've got 24-hour guards. They've got checkpoints. They then put dogs that they trained to be really, really vicious and attack. They put upright sleepers, railway sleepers in there to stop tanks going across, or cars or vehicles of any sort. They put landmines. They put more barbed wire. That's how I train my men. They really strengthen it. What else have I put on here? They've then got obviously more machine guns, more points there, and so much so that there is a story. I think did I link that one as your clip? I can't remember. Yes, I did. There is a story of a guy called, I can't remember, Peter, I think his name is, and he's a student that tries to cross the Berlin Wall, and he is shot, not fatally shot. He is shot and wounded in his kind of chest and shoulder area, and he lays in the middle of the Berlin Wall death strip. That's it. Yes. I couldn't remember. It's Peter Feckler. That's it. He lays in the middle, shouting for hours for help, and neither the American or British or French or the Russians dare cross to go and save him. He dies screaming in pain and crying in pain, because of what this death strip did, because they were so determined, the Soviets, to keep people in. Now, you can imagine then, people they really hated the Berlin Wall going up. They hated this division. People were in Berlin very like a close-knit community, whether they were on the east or west side. So people found that really difficult. And in this documentary, I've got some different case studies that you are welcome to look at. Rudy Thero, Gunter Lifting, Frieda Schultz, and then Peter Feckler. The documentary is about 40 minutes, so feel free to come back and go to it, or if you don't want to watch the documentary, I don't mind you Googling it at all. But there are some really heartbreaking stories from the Berlin Wall, and how families were divided just because of where they lived, and didn't get to see each other for 30 years. So it's quite a touching story, and it's all because Khrushchev chucked his toys out of the pram. There is also the fun story about how Kennedy went to Berlin and said "Ich bin ein Berliner," to show support for the Berliners, But by saying ich bin ein Berliner, he said that he was a jam donut, not that he was a Berliner. Bit of fun for you. Right, if you need anything, please let me know. That is it for today. Like I said, with the documentary, you are more than welcome to watch it if you want to. It's quite an old documentary, but it's very good. If you haven't got the facilities to watch it or you would prefer not to, that's not a problem. Yeah, KFC Jam Donut. You are more than welcome to Google those names. Otherwise, I'm going to go and clean my bathroom. And but I have got my phone on if you need it, and I will reply to anything that you need help with. Yeah, have a wonderful weekend. If you can't get it to me today, don't panic. Get it to me as when you can. But if you can get it to me today, that would be great. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and see you on Wednesday. Bye.